Hello, I'm still not Corey, and I'm also not that big a fan of Steven Crowder. So Steven Crowder got his second strike on YouTube for violating the community guidelines, specifically those on cyberbullying and harassment. I saw his video whining about it on Twitter, so I thought it might be fun to look at some of the stuff that he's done recently on his show. If you don't know who Steven Crowder is, lucky you. He's a conservative, I want to say comedian, but he's not really that funny. He's got the show Louder with Crowder on YouTube where he talks about current events and I guess tries to make jokes, but no, they're not really jokes. You might also know him as the face of this meme. That's because he has another show where he sits down in public and debates random people off the street, because those are the only debates he can come close to winning. And that is relevant because the video that he posted on Twitter whining about getting a strike, there are two versions of that. One of them includes someone that challenged him to a debate and he chickened out, and the other one has that person removed. He just deleted the video and re-uploaded it without that person in it. So the tweet says, "Why no live show today, you ask? Ah, well, YouTube hit our channel with a second hard strike, saying we violated their harassment guidelines." Probably true. Which is interesting when you consider all the harassment YouTube allows if it comes from the left. Okay, before we even start watching the video, I just want to point out that Steven Crowder got away with harassment for a long, long time. He had a specific campaign of harassment against one particular person and often used homophobic language and slurs whilst harassing that person. And he didn't see a strike until a lot of people started talking about it and YouTube couldn't really do anything but give him a strike. Anyway, let's just watch the video. Just one more strike will result in the permanent removal of your channel. Oh no. How horrible would that be? Whatever would we do? See, okay, before I even properly get into it, right? The fact that the title of this is YouTube Approved Hate. So you are admitting that your videos are hateful, right? You are admitting that. That's the point that you're trying to make, right? That it's unfair that these videos get to stay up, but that yours get taken down. So you're not saying that you're not hateful, you're just pointing at other people that you say are also hateful. Because... Cool, own goal there. Good job.
Blame that fucking kid. What a little smirk face.
I made fun of him originally, and then I continued after I found more information out about him.
She died for a second Trump term, even though that would have solved exactly none of her problems.
His religion dictates that food with unnatural chemicals are an object intrusion into his body. And if there's one thing this man won't stand for, it's an intrusion.
Can I just point out that thus far most of these have been talk show hosts talking and making jokes about current events, and while I do think that some of them were maybe a bit too far, I don't think it's quite the same thing as what Steven Crowder does, right? These are jokes, right? These are jokes, and while I think that some of them are too far, you can tell that fundamentally at the core of them, they are jokes. There is a construction of a joke there. There is a setup and a punchline, okay?
I can't stand Steven Crowder for a number of reasons. He's disgusting, he's terrible, I hate everything he's saying. Oh, I'm being oppressed because I'm not allowed to attack people on these platforms.
I mean, true, that is... What? Why would you, oh my god. In a post, in a tweet, in a video where you are saying, I'm being oppressed because I'm not allowed to attack people, why would you include a video of someone absolutely summing up what you're doing? Come on. That is really funny, right? Like, what is Steven Crowder doing with this post if not crying about not being allowed to attack people? Saying, I hate all the things he says, like, oh, like, yes, he's disgusting, blah, blah, blah. She's clearly talking about the things that you say, right? She's clearly talking about the things that come out of Steven Crowder's mouth. It's not like disgusting, ugly Steven Crowder. Like, no one, like, that's not what she's saying. That's not what she's saying. She's saying he says hateful things and complains that he doesn't get to attack and harass people. It's not quite the same thing as what Steven Crowder does.
Trump or not, you just look like an asshole. I just like punch you. Why do they think that I hold certain views? It's like, what do you mean? Because of that, you know what the hat symbolizes.
Looking at that, most of those are talk show hosts making jokes about one specific kid. Can't really remember the story, but that was probably a thing for like 1 week. And I don't agree with it, right? I do think it's too far, and I also don't think it's that funny to joke about, like, assaulting a child, regardless of how horrible that child's views may be, right? I don't think that's okay. But also, YouTube is getting a lot of money, so that's probably why they're not taking down those accounts, because they probably do bring in a fair amount of money, right? And it's also just, there's the tiniest bit of difference, right, between this one kid that you can see them making jokes about for that 1 week, and the consistent campaign that Steven Crowder has of just attacking people, like, constantly. If he got his first strike for the homophobia stuff, then that is very much a different thing than what he's shown here, right? It's very much a different thing. Bear in mind, I'm saying that none of them are good, but like pointing at these guys doesn't necessarily save Crowder himself. And saying that YouTube is biased, yeah, we all agree that YouTube is biased because it took this much effort just to get Steven Crowder 2 community guideline strikes, right? We all agree that YouTube is biased. But the thing is that YouTube is not biased towards the left, it's biased towards money, right? The reason that Steven Crowder was able to continue doing this stuff for so long is because he was making YouTube money. If it was anyone else that was a smaller account that wasn't making them money, they would be taken down almost immediately. Steven Crowder has had a lot of leeway, and he's ignoring that. Like, he's had the leeway because he makes YouTube money. Again, the whole bias thing is not about the left-right bias, it's about who makes the money. And talk show hosts will make you money. Steven Crowder made them money, but also Steven Crowder has gone way too far, and they're like, okay, this is too much bad PR. There is a lot of bad stuff that he's done, I guess we have to give him a second strike. And again, the fact that he's only on a second strike right now is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, so that was the video that he posted sort of announcing his strike. Why don't we look at some videos that might have gotten him his strikes, right? Why don't we look to see what he's done on his show? I'm sure there could be nothing quite that bad, really. It's bad. It's bad stuff. It's not good. I just want you to bear in mind a couple things because I'm not going to be reacting to these videos in this video because I don't really want to watch them. One is Steven Crowder doing just atrocious, awful yellow face. I don't even remember the reason. It's not funny. He's doing a Krusty the Clown bit, and in Krusty Gets Cancelled, which is like an early Simpsons season, right? Back in the 90s, Krusty gets cancelled for that. His show gets cancelled because that kind of humor was racist and outdated. And Steven Crowder is here doing it like 20 years later, thinking that it's still funny and cool. The other thing is Steven Crowder trying to prove that George Floyd wasn't like murdered by Derek Chauvin because, it's really difficult to kill someone with their knees on you in this position. So he demonstrates it with himself, and his friend kneeling on him just does not have his knees in the right position. He straight up lies. You can see other people talking about that, but I don't really want to go into it in this video because, one, I don't want to watch a man do blatant yellow face, and two, I don't want to watch a man imitate George Floyd's death. Those are just not things I'm very interested in watching right now. Okay, so this is Steven Crowder and his reaction to black farmers. Why don't we have a look?
Most happy about the new policy, these people. So yeah, I'm gonna buy a plow, man. I'm gonna plant that corn. Go get a John Deere. Barack Obama, mother. I'm the president of plowing that. You.
I thought the last thing they would want to do was be farmers. Wasn't that a big problem for hundreds of years?
Wow! Good job, comedy man! What a joke! Black people are like that, aren't they? You know, usually when people want to make jokes about like racist stereotypes, they'll do something that is more than just, here is a racist stereotype. Like, there's some sort of juxtaposition. There's some sort of, like, making fun of the stereotype itself or the idea of stereotypes. No, Steven Crowder thinks it's very, very funny. It's the height of comedy just to put on a black voice and just say racist stuff. Okay, good job, man. There's no other joke here, right? There's no other explanation. It's just, black farmers, why don't we take this famous painting and make them look black, and then I'll do a black voice, right? That's funny, right? Jesus, man, it's like a kid. He makes jokes like a child, like a very unfunny child.
I thought the last thing they would want to do was be farmers. Wasn't that a big problem for hundreds of years?
Yeah.
Why would black people want to be farmers when slavery happened? Ha 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 ha. Good job. It is funny how unfunny they are.
Are people lining up out in the middle of cornfield, Iowa for new dunks?
Notice that the people that he pays to sit around to do the show with him and laugh at his jokes could not bring themselves to laugh at that one. Sorry, mate, but when your employees are even like, I don't know, that one kind of fell flat. Like, maybe you should reconsider.
How would you prove this, by the way? Like, how would you prove that you've been discriminated
You don't
against?
have to, you just
Well, I
say
didn't get that
so.
loan. Sir, you had no credit. Well, that should not have stopped me from getting the loan.
I mean, I'm sure if you were to look into it, you'd probably find out that there are ways to figure out if people are being discriminated against. I mean, I'm sure, of course, you don't want to. You don't want to look into it because it doesn't like, help with your worldview of black people not being farmers, them just being sort of, like, I don't know, either in the ghetto or Barack Obama or slaves. Like, come on. You're really telling on yourself there, man? Like, I can't off the top of my head figure out a way that you could prove discrimination here. Therefore, there is no discrimination, and these black people did not deserve the loan. Like, Come on, man. Come on.
I planted a Hennessy tree, but it's not growing.
Oh, another black stereotype. Woo! Woo! Boy, we're really raking in the humor here, aren't we? You guys realize that there's more to humor than just saying a stereotype for a group, right? There is, you could add a little bit of spice to it. You could, I don't know, give a punchline and not just a stereotype. Those are two different things. And don't get me wrong, I think edgy humor can be funny. I just think it needs to be funny. Like, this is just edgy. These are legitimately the kind of jokes my friends and I would make in high school before we discovered, like, how to actually make jokes. Oh my god.
Well, technically it did grow, but that ain't XO.
I put it in the ground.
I planted a VSOP XO tree.
I love that. So Steven Crowder's mate, he makes an excuse for a joke, and then Steven Crowder, who has to be the funniest guy in the room, tries to add on to that joke and just, again, it falls flat. He's not a funny guy. So being blatantly racist wasn't enough. He also had a story on Billie Eilish, so let's see what he thought of her.
Billie Eilish. She said, I really think the bottom line is men are very weak. And she goes on to say, it's just so easy for them to lose it. You expect the dude not to grab you if you're wearing that dress. Seriously, you're that weak. Come on, go. Let me just point out, without men, none of this interview would be possible. So the interview was given to British Vogue, obviously a print magazine, printing press, invented by a man. Johann Zahn, a man, invented the camera, of course, for the photo shoot. Arthur Baldwin Turner, a man, invented and created Vogue magazine, though I'm sure men were using the term loosely. The internet, which is where this was largely circulated, was invented, of course, by a man.
I just want to point out, I didn't make that cut, it's from the Mug Club TikTok, but Billie Eilish says, men are weak because they can't control themselves. Steven Crowder's response, ah yes, but you forget, men invent things. Okay? Non sequitur, but good. You are right, Stephen. Well done. Men have historically invented many, many things, but also women have kind of been kept out of that whole inventing science area of humanity for quite a while, haven't they? It's like grounding one of your kids and then, you know, like after a couple of weeks being like, oh, well, Jimmy, you see, your brother has been out to play with his friends a lot more than you have. Yeah, because you stopped me from doing that. I don't know why they cut it like that, because that's not even a response to what Billie Eilish said.
The internet, which is where this was largely circulated, was invented, of course, by a man.
During my service in the United States Congress, I took the initiative in creating the internet.
Okay, sorry. It was Tim Berners-Lee, but, you know, that was back before new media, so Al Gore could just lie completely like that.
Yeah. Yeah, dunk on Al Gore! Yeah, dunk on him! Dunk on Al Gore! Go for it! Can't say anything about Billie Eilish, so I'll just do this non sequitur and take a 22-year late dunk on Al Gore for saying he invented the internet. This just proves my theory that Steven Crowder cannot make a joke that isn't, like, 20 years out of date, right? Like, Steven Crowder might have been funny 20 years ago, maybe, but even then, 20 years ago was 2001. That clip was from 1999. He still would have been 2 years late with it. So, good job for trying, buddy. Maybe, just maybe, in 20 years we'll see Steven Crowder make like a good joke. Sorry, I just cannot let go how funny it is to me that he specifically derailed the conversation to about what men have invented, so that he could not quite dunk on Billie Eilish. He couldn't quite do that, but he really got one in on Al Gore. Like, why? Who cares? Who cares about Al Gore right now? No offense, Mr. Gore. You do great work, I'm sure, but like, come on. Are we not past the making fun of Al Gore point of history? That is a dead horse, and you are still flogging it. And again, just listing inventions for men has nothing to do with men being able to control themselves. And also, if a man hadn't invented the printing press, if we had like banned men from inventing things, it's not like a woman couldn't do it, right? It's not like inventing things is a purely mannish ability. It's not a masculine thing. It's just like women weren't allowed to do a lot of stuff. What is your point here, Stephen? What are you trying to say? To round us off, we've got some more of Steven Crowder talking about Billie Eilish.
Loved doing this shoot. Do whatever you want, whenever you want. Everything else. I don't know. How about responsibilities? How about love, empathy, compassion, moral virtue, responsibility, discipline? Not everything that's not a Dita Von Teese branded corset push-up bra. There are other things in life that I think you'll find are more important at some point.
Hey, do what you want. Forget about everything else, right? Oh, forget about everything else, you say? Oh, well, what about love and responsibility? What about... Stephen, oh, shh, calm down, Stephen, calm down. That's not what she meant. You know, we both know that's not what she meant, and your joke wasn't quite wasn't quite funny enough. Your complete misinterpretation of what she said wasn't quite funny enough to warrant its own existence. So just move on. If you don't have anything funny to say, maybe just don't do the story. You don't need to do it. No one's forcing you to do it, I hope. Blink twice. Jesus. Seriously though, I feel like I shouldn't even need to explain what Billie Eilish was saying because it's so incredibly obvious. Do what you want and fuck everything else does not mean literally everything in the world apart from this one thing I want to wear. It means do what makes you happy and don't worry about the other stuff. It's not saying forget about moral virtue, forget about responsibility, forget about love for this one item of clothing. Do what you want and don't worry about everything else. Don't worry about, people saying, oh, you shouldn't be wearing that. Forget about that. It doesn't matter. As long as you're happy with what you're wearing, that's all that matters. Steven! She's a 19-year-old girl, I think. She's a teenager at least. Like, why? Why do you feel the need to, attack her like this? Make this story in the first place if you don't even have anything worthwhile to say? You clearly cannot say anything about what she's saying because you've gone off on a tangent about what men have invented, and you've willfully misinterpreted her very, very simple point to make some kind of, I assume you were trying to make a joke. What was the point of this segment if you had nothing to say?
People will say, okay, boomer, even though I'm millennial. It's like, no, hold on a second. There used to be a time when we realized that when people got older, they were somewhat wiser.
No.
Yes.
And other things matter other than, your tits on the cover of Vogue.
Sorry, I just want to live in the world where Steven Crowder genuinely believes that, one, Billie Eilish meant that the only thing that matters is having her tits on the cover of Vogue, and two, that he has become wiser with age. I want to live in that world where he genuinely believes those two things, because I know he doesn't. He can't believe that. He can't. He just cannot. But the joke isn't funny enough to warrant pretending to believe that, so I have no idea why he's doing it.
Young women were expected to know and do everything and be everyone's mom when we're 15. Really?
What? What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
I think Billie Eilish is just talking about the responsibility that is placed on girls that isn't necessarily placed on boys of the same age. We've all heard of boys will be boys, haven't we? That's not the same thing that gets applied to girls. We all hear that girls mature faster than boys. We all let boys get away with things that we don't necessarily let girls get away with. Girls have to put up with a lot of stuff that boys don't. I'm not saying that all boys' lives are easier than all girls' lives and all boys are less responsible than all girls. I'm just saying that as a society, we do generally expect that young girls are more responsible than young boys. You can't necessarily argue with that, and just pretending that you don't believe it, again, to make a bad joke is not necessarily worth it. You're not very funny, Steven. So those were just relatively recent things from this year. There is a lot more, and honestly a lot worse stuff coming from Steven Crowder. You can see maybe why YouTube has given him a couple strikes for the cyberbullying and harassment. I would argue that 2 strikes maybe isn't quite enough. YouTube has given him a lot of leeway there. The fact that he's complaining about it is just... Don't chance your luck, mate. I wouldn't chance your luck. Look, I know humor is subjective. I know people find comedy in different places. I can say that objectively, Steven Crowder is not funny. He's just not. He's not a funny guy. Pick another profession, man. Honestly, the thing with Steven Crowder is that I really think he's lasted longer on YouTube than he should have. And like I said, I don't think it's necessarily great that that other stuff is allowed on YouTube either. If YouTube is going to enforce their policies, they should enforce them consistently. But I really think that saying it's a left-right bias is just not the case. The fact that Steven Crowder lasted as long as he did kind of shows that, right? Because the stuff that he's put out as well, like you've seen, is pretty egregious, right? Just the stuff I've shown today is ranged from kind of unfunny and bad faith criticisms to, actually pretty damn racist. And that's not even the full range of it. He gets even less funny and probably even more racist as well. And again, I just want to bring up that he had a long-term targeted harassment campaign against one particular person and focused very heavily on homophobia. Again, the fact that he lasted this long, Jesus. If anything, it shows a bias towards him that he only has 2 strikes, so stop being such a baby. Oh my god. And when I say that Steven Crowder is objectively unfunny, what I mean by that is that, obviously subjectively, I don't find his jokes funny. I don't find the things that he says very funny. They don't make me laugh. But when I say objectively, one, I'm kind of joking, but if I'm gonna take a more serious look at it, I don't think the things that he says are jokes. They're not constructed like jokes. There's nothing to them other than just... here's a stereotype. It seems more like he just wants to say racist things. He just wants to say bad things. I could almost give it a pass if he was saying it with like a hint of irony. Oh, how funny would it be if I was the kind of person that said and thought these things? Exaggerating, making fun of the kind of person that thinks this way. But it doesn't really seem like he's making fun of the kind of person that thinks that way. It just seems like he is the kind of person that thinks that way, right? Thank you to all my patrons, with a very special thank you to Sarah. If you would like to become a patron, you can at patreon.com/notcorry, where you could get these videos early, you could get bonus videos, you get bonus live streams, a bunch of cool stuff. So go and do that. I guess I think I am done. I have nothing left to say. Goodbye.